Oliver Cromwell, the man who executed a king and dismantled the monarchy, faced a death that was just as dramatic as the life he led. As Lord Protector of England, he had commanded armies, overthrown governments, and reshaped the course of history. But in the summer of 1658, the man who had struck fear into the hearts of monarchs found himself powerless against a hidden enemy, one he could not see or fight. This enemy wasn't another army, but a disease that had silently invaded his body for years. Malaria, contracted on a battlefield in Ireland 9 years earlier, had returned with a vengeance. Despite having access to a cure that could have saved him, Cromwell chose pride over survival. The very medicine that could have spared him was something he refused because it came from his most hated enemies. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below on how Cromwell's pride ultimately led to his downfall. Oliver Cromwell, the man who had toppled England's monarchy and signed the death warrant for King Charles I, seemed invincible. As the Lord Protector of England, he was not only the leader of the country, but a powerful figure in European politics. His rise to power had been marked by military conquests and unwavering resolve. But while Cromwell ruled with iron will, a storm was brewing inside him. A storm he could not control. It started innocently enough during his military campaign in Ireland. Amidst the marshlands and mosquito-infested air, Cromwell contracted a fever that would plague him for years to come. The disease, now known as malaria, entered his body through a mosquito bite. What he didn't know at the time was that this illness, though it would seem to subside, would never truly leave him. It would wait, lurking in the shadows, until it was ready to strike again. The early symptoms of malaria were brutal but familiar: a high fever, chills, and intense shivering. Cromwell's doctors diagnosed him with a disease they could hardly name. In the years following his infection, the symptoms ebbed and flowed, sometimes disappearing completely, only to return with renewed force. By 1651, the disease had nearly killed him. While leading a campaign in Scotland, Cromwell was struck down by fever once again. This time, his condition was so dire that Parliament sent its finest physicians to attend to him. Cromwell was bedridden for months, barely able to move. His soldiers, once loyal to his command, now feared the inevitable. Cromwell's illness could mean the end of his rule. Yet, against all odds, he survived. But surviving wasn't the same as recovering. The disease had taken a toll on his body, and Cromwell, though alive, would never be the same. As the years passed, Cromwell's body bore the scars of his battles. Not just the physical ones, but the internal war he fought against malaria. By 1655, foreign diplomats began to notice a subtle but undeniable change in the once powerful Lord Protector. The Venetian ambassador, writing in secret, observed that Cromwell looked drawn, his health visibly deteriorating. The tremor in his hand as he removed his hat was a stark reminder of his decline. This was the same man who had charged into battle without hesitation, who had signed the death warrant of a king with unwavering resolve. Yet now, at 56, his hand trembled when he simply greeted someone. Cromwell had become a shadow of his former self, and the disease that had invaded his body was no longer just a threat. It was a slow, inevitable destroyer. His body was failing, and he had no way of stopping it. Malaria, unlike many diseases, doesn't kill quickly. Instead, it weakens the host over time. For Cromwell, this meant recurring fevers, each one worse than the last. These episodes, which struck unpredictably, would leave him feverish and exhausted. His body would shiver uncontrollably, even in the warmth of summer. And then, as quickly as the cold came, the fever would spike. His clothes would become drenched in sweat, and his body would burn with intense heat. As the fever subsided, he would briefly recover, but not fully. With each cycle, his body grew weaker. Each recovery took longer, leaving Cromwell to face the reality that he was losing the battle against his own body. His physicians, though they tried every remedy in their arsenal, were powerless. They called these episodes colds and wrote them off as a natural hazard of English life, never realizing they were witnessing the slow unraveling of a once mighty man. In June 1658, just as London sweltered in an unusually hot summer, Cromwell received news that would shake him to his core. His daughter Elizabeth was dying. Elizabeth, whom he had always held closest, was not just any daughter. She was his moral compass, the one who softened his harsh edges. At 28, she had a unique role in his life, advocating for mercy and forgiveness where her father had none. While Cromwell's other children embraced his stern Puritanism, Elizabeth was known for her compassion, interceding on behalf of royalists and using her influence to secure pardons. By the time Cromwell arrived at her bedside, her condition was grave. She was suffering from what was suspected to be cancer. This was a crushing blow to Cromwell, who had already suffered the loss of his grandson. But now, watching his beloved daughter fade away, he was powerless to save her. As Elizabeth's condition worsened, royalist propaganda spread rumors that would forever haunt Cromwell. It was said that in her final moments, Elizabeth accused her father of having blood on his hands, of condemning King Charles to death without mercy. The rumors painted a portrait of a father who had not only lost his daughter, but also her respect. However, there is no credible evidence that Elizabeth ever made such a statement. It was a cruel fiction, created to tarnish Cromwell's legacy. Even as his own daughter lay dying, the whispers of his enemies found their way into the public sphere. The idea that his daughter had turned on him in her last moments was the kind of story that, for some, seemed too perfect to ignore. It reflected the deep divisions within England at the time, and painted Cromwell as a monster, even in the eyes of his own family. As Elizabeth's death became inevitable, Cromwell's own health continued to deteriorate. The fevers that had plagued him for years now returned with a ferocity that left him debilitated. It began as gout, a common ailment among the elite, but soon it became clear that this was not a simple case of overindulgence. The fever came back, and with it, the horrific cycle of shivering, sweating, vomiting, and agonizing pain. The man who had once commanded armies now lay in his bed, helpless and broken. His physicians tried every remedy they could think of, but nothing worked. Cromwell's body, worn down by years of illness, could not fight any longer. Between attacks, he would appear to recover, giving false hope to those around him. Yet the disease was relentless, and Cromwell's strength was dwindling. He could no longer hide from the truth. His body was failing, and his time was running out. By 1658, European medicine had discovered a cure for malaria. Jesuits' powder, derived from the bark of the cinchona tree, had been used successfully across Catholic Europe to treat malaria. It was a life-saving medicine that targeted the parasites in the bloodstream, breaking the fever cycle. Cromwell's physicians knew about it, and it was within reach, probably just a day's ride away from his deathbed. But Cromwell, a man of strong beliefs and uncompromising principles, refused to take it. The very word Jesuit was enough to turn him away. The man who had fought for Protestant rule and had executed Catholics could not bring himself to accept help from those he had spent his life opposing. Even as his body consumed itself with fever, the cure that could save him lay untouched, rejected because of his hatred for the very people who had discovered it. As Cromwell's end drew near, he knew it. His body, ravaged by disease, had become a mere vessel. On his deathbed, he spoke to God, acknowledging his faults and the role he had played in shaping England's future. He prayed not only for himself but for those who despised him. He prayed for his enemies, asking for their forgiveness. The man who had ordered the execution of a king, who had led a bloody revolution, now humbled himself before the divine. His prayers revealed the inner turmoil of a man who had lived by conviction but was now faced with the reality of his mortality. "Lord, though I am a miserable and wretched creature," he prayed, "I am in covenant with Thee through grace." Cromwell's final hours were a testament to the complexity of his character, a man of both strength and weakness, of power and humility. On September 3, 1658, Oliver Cromwell died. The storm that raged outside Whitehall Palace that day became a symbol of the chaos he had brought to England. Witnesses described the winds as fierce, and some even believed it was the devil himself coming to claim Cromwell's soul. But the storm was not the true force at play. It was the disease inside him, malaria, combined with the emotional toll of losing his daughter, had ravaged his body. The final attack came quickly, leaving Cromwell barely able to speak. His last words were whispered about England's future, a final reflection on the legacy he would leave behind. Cromwell's death marked the end of the Commonwealth he had built. Just days later, the monarchy was restored, and Cromwell's body would be exhumed and desecrated as an act of revenge. His head, mounted on a pole, would become a symbol of royalist triumph and a grotesque reminder of the man who had once ruled England. Cromwell's life and death serve as a powerful reminder of how even the most powerful figures can be undone by their own flaws. His refusal to take the cure that could have saved him, his emotional struggles, and the tragedy of his final days all paint a complex picture of a man who shaped history. If you found this story fascinating, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more historical deep dives into the lives of the most influential figures in history. What do you think? Was Cromwell a hero or a villain? Was his death a tragic end to a powerful legacy, or the justice that history demanded? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.